have it here.
Yeah, I already started.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the monthly mastermind. You're all in for a tremendous treat today. I'm probably more enthused and excited about this call than any that we have done to date, because in a few moments I'm going to introduce you to two of what I consider to be of the nation's absolute best. Okay, and our topic today is the ISA model, the Inside Sales Associate, fad or foundation to your success. Here's a few of the things that we're going to be taking a look at. Why is specialization increasingly important? Why is it important to have a designated, for example, buyer's agent, listing agent, and an inside sales associate? We're also going to take a look at the hidden innate success factors of our two special guests today, how to eliminate poor hires with a proven science. We're going to talk briefly about whether or not a virtual ISA model or an in-house ISA model is best. And we're also going to spend a lot of time talking to our special guests today and asking them to really share with us some of the best practices. So before I introduce them, let me just mention this. I was working with a new customer last week, and one of the buyer's agents on the one-on-one call that I did with them mentioned how exceptional their ISA team member was, the best that he's ever worked with. And she is generating about 30 appointments per month. Now, as good as that is, I want to tell you that my two guests here today have averaged 3 times that amount. That's right, 3 times. Their average 1 week production between the two of them is 25 appointments set in 1 week. So without further ado, Scott Solari, thank you so much for facilitating this. GetViral is an invaluable resource and partner to me. They do all my marketing. And right now, I just want to spend a moment and introduce two of our special guests. First of all, Caroline Keene. Caroline, when her assessment result came through for Mark Z, this is exactly what I wrote to Mark Z in the email. The short answer is hire Caroline before somebody else does. Now, I'm not normally that bold. Without having looked at her resume, without having met her, knowing nothing about this woman, why could I make such a definitive and bold statement? Because her profile results were perhaps one of the best I've ever seen, like in the top 1% and 2% of anybody out of the millions of people that have ever taken this profile. Okay. Similarly, when Natalie's assessment came through for Fred Holmes, her profiles were absolutely outstanding as well. And she is conservatively also in the top 2 to 3%. And I made a comment to Fred to fast track Natalie, get her in the office as quickly as you can. I doubt you will find a candidate that is stronger than what she is. So, folks, without any more further ado, I just want to welcome them and thank you, both Caroline and Natalie, for being here as a guest and sharing your wisdom with the rest of this community.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. So before we start, I thought it would be appropriate. Fred Holmes is with us there with Natalie, and I thought I would ask Fred, would you mind just sharing your perspective in terms of, I know Natalie's only been on board for a very short period of time, but what value has this ISA person, this ISA function, provided to you in a very short period of time? If you could just mention that, Fred, I think that'd be great for all the entrepreneurs and all of your peers out there that are listening.
Yeah, it's something that is quantifiable. It's something we can put dollar value to. We just went through Natalie's numbers for next year, and conservatively, she's going to set appointments for our buyer's agents that will total about $50 million worth of business. So not all that's going to monetize, but that's a huge step up. What a wonderful thing that our buyer's agents know in advance that this kind of service is going to be provided to them, and they're going to have a different kind of year just because Natalie is on the team.
Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Fred. Now, it's very encouraging when I receive feedback from my clients. So, Fred, you sent me an email not even a month after Natalie was on board and said, I have something incredibly encouraging to share with you. do you mind if we have 5 minutes of your time sometime tomorrow? And of course I said yes. So we jumped on the phone for just 5 or 6 minutes. And Natalie, would you mind sharing what the purpose of that call was?
That was to tell you that I had made 26 appointments in a week.
26 appointments in 1 week. So Caroline, you kind of set the high watermark, and because Natalie is so results-oriented and competitive, she knew that you had set 23 appointments because I mentioned that. And so her second month on the job, you had a target, right? You were the target, and she actually set 26 appointments in 1 week. So fantastic performance. Now,
That's excellent.
Caroline, the difference between what you did and what Natalie did is when you were working for Mark Z at the time, all your appointments were in-house appointments, right? So they were actually coming to your office.
Yes, that was the most difficult part, was getting them in our door instead of us going to their home.
Okay, fantastic. The other thing is there's for those of you that are watching, there is only a very short, I think it's about a 14-minute video on my website, thetalentgenius.com, where you'll hear from Mark Z personally about his experience with Caroline and another ISA that we hired, and she was contributing about 10 to 12 closes per month and tripling a buyer's agent's performance. So I give those numbers up front to everybody that's listening to let you know that when you have the right person, this can be an absolutely unbelievable asset to your organization. Okay, so why don't we start with this, ladies? Why don't you tell me a little bit about your style or your approach? Talk to me about, you know, your personality in terms of your delivery when you're talking and when you're making these calls. Caroline, why don't we start with you?
Well, you know, for me, it's just, I guess, common sense. I mean, you have to have a bubbly, energetic personality, and you have to know your scripts. But for me, it's just listening. A lot of people, they get so into their scripts, they don't actually listen to what the person's saying. And then you have to sort of connect on a personable level and establish that good rapport. You know, and just by listening, and if they can tell that you are listening to what they're saying and understanding and connecting, it makes all the difference in the world. And so I just try to go with that and common sense.
Okay. So, Caroline, you're absolutely right. There are a few things that are more offensive than when we are the recipient, whether we're called at home or when we're at work and someone's cold calling us, and it's so robotic and you know that person's reading something word for word. I was recently out in the Gulf Coast, let me emphasize something, and I delivered a program, and I talked about scripts, about their place and how important they are, but I also talked about making it your own and being very personable. The next day, I got an email from one of the attendees. Listen to this. This will blow your mind. She wrote me, for the first time in 12 years, I felt comfortable meeting a new potential buyer for the first time. This lady had been in the real estate market for 12 years and felt so uncomfortable and so uneasy because she let the script completely throw her off course. Well, I basically said, forget about the script. It's only a guide. It kind of tells you and gives you direction in terms of what to say and what to do. Put your own personality into it. So on the upside, here's now a person for the first time in 12 years that now every day she's going to be comfortable with now meeting and greeting people for the first time because she's going to forget about the script. So Natalie, why don't you weigh in on this in terms of, you know, what is your approach, your style, your delivery? How is it that you create such a great impression, that you have so many closes? What really works well for you?
I think what works the best for me is trying to make a friend out of that person on the other end of the phone in the first 5 seconds that I've got their attention.
Okay.
Just finding out what they really need from me, whether it's a cheerleader because they're going to buy for the first time or somebody who's going to be a sympathetic ear. Whatever they need is what I try to be.
Gotcha. Okay. Tell me about how likable, personable, upbeat, your energy level. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm pretty upbeat.
Okay. Well,
I like to have a good time.
why don't we do something a little fun? If you don't mind, why don't we just do a quick little role play? It'll just take a couple of minutes. You think that I'm somebody brand new that you're calling. You've just actually called me, and I've picked up, and I said, hello, this is John.
Well, hi, John. This is Natalie, and I'm with the Tammy Holmes Real Estate Experts of ATR Realtors. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. I see that you registered recently on the SearchDaytonHomeListings.com website, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your home search. Are you currently looking for a new home?
Yes, we are.
Great. And what area would you like to live in?
Probably the Dayton area, because that's where my new job is located.
Okay, great. Any other areas that you might consider?
I'm really not too familiar with the area since I'm coming from out of town, so I really need to rely on, other people's expertise for maybe some of the other surrounding communities nearby.
Okay, well, you're in luck because our realty experts are experts in this area, and they'll be able to walk you right through that and find the perfect area for you to live in.
Okay.
Do you know the price range that you want to stay in?
Probably within $350.
Okay, perfect. And have you seen anything that's caught your eye this far?
Not really. We're kind of on the preliminary stages, but we're very excited about kind of moving forward.
Okay. Well, how soon do you hope to be in this area, John?
Well, we'd actually like to be in by January the 31st, if that's possible.
Okay, I think that is possible, but we better get cracking and find you a place to live.
Okay.
Are you going to be in this area anytime soon that we could set up a time for you to meet with one of our experts and start looking at homes?
Both my wife and I will be in town next week.
Okay. All right. Well, that's perfect. Let me take a look here at the calendar. And if you don't mind my asking, have you taken a look at financing for the home? Will you need a mortgage for that? Do we need to hook you up with somebody?
No, that's not a factor in this situation.
Okay. Perfect. Let's take a look at your schedule then for next week when you're here and find a great time for you to sit down and meet with one of our realty experts.
Well, before I actually do that, you're real personable and you've made a good impression, but can you tell me one thing? I know there's a lot of choices in terms of who my wife and I could work with in your specific area. There's a lot of, of realtors. Why is it, from your point of view, that me deciding to connect with your firm would be the best decision?
Well, of course, I'm going to tell you that we are the best. I'm also going to tell you that the average agent right now today sells an average about 6 homes a year, and our agents on average sell about 40 each a year. So I think that speaks for itself, and we also have a very efficient team that takes you from the beginning, your first trip to the office, all the way to the closing with efficiency and class. And I don't think you would be disappointed.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we set something up on Saturday then, and I'll look forward to meeting one of your team members.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
We'll do that.
All right. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Okay, Natalie. Thank you. So, for those of you listening,
that was the easiest buyer ever, right there. Amazing.
Well, yeah, I wasn't really being that difficult, but more so than anything, Scott, is what I want to try to get across is the tone, the how likable I guess she is, right? How friendly she is. It's certainly not canned. So,
I found it interesting too, and I was going to ask you, how important do you think it is, Natalie, that you're ending every statement with a question back to the person you're talking to?
I think that's really important because I need to know what they're thinking.
Right.
So that's a great pickup, Scott. The fact is that not only is she qualifying me, but based on how she handles the conversation, I'm qualifying her.
Right.
So asking those open-ended questions around financing, around location, around timetable and schedule are obviously very important. Caroline, what else would you like to interject as it relates to maybe questions that you ask or information that you're trying to secure?
Well, one thing is to try to get a sense of what their disc would be. If right away if I've got somebody who doesn't seem very upbeat and is sort of one-word answers and you think that they might be a C, or you kind of have to try to figure that out with a little bit of the conversation, and then you want to try to mirror that back. And so if I've got someone who doesn't want me to ramble on, that has, then I've got to be short and sweet and get to the point, provide the facts, the numbers, the percentages. We sell this many homes, our list of sale prices, such and such, and give them the cold hard facts. If you've got somebody who you can tell is a high I and emotional, and you may want to throw in like, when do you see yourself, or when do you need to be in your home, and can you see yourself living or spending Christmas in our area, and what do you envision? Someone like that you might want to get a little more creative with,
Okay.
just to establish that connection better. But you do have to figure out their personality and try to mirror it.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Out of curiosity, Caroline, I've not asked you this question before, but what type of sales training and background do you have? Have you any classical sales training? Have you been to like sales programs and things like that?
Well, I grew up with a family business. My grandfather invented the head guard for wrestling.
Okay.
We have a worldwide company called Cliff Keen Athletic, and my grandfather, he started the business in the basement of his home, and then my dad, took over and worked with my grandfather, and then my brothers came in, and then I did, I started working there when I was a teenager, in the summers, and I learned every aspect of the business, customer service and filing and talking on the phone, and the manufacturing and marketing and advertising. And so I really was lucky because I had that experience of learning every facet of a business. And then I got into branching off to that company and having my own business where I manufactured athletic wear. And I would travel around the country and go to like the run, walk, ride conferences.
Okay, so Caroline, what you're telling me is basically a lot of this is learned from upbringing.
Yes.
So for those of you that are listening, I want to mention something very insightful, or something that's very helpful in the interview process. One of the questions I love to ask is, what do your parents do for a living? And the reason for it is because oftentimes, very often in fact, like for example, my father was the #1 single most decorated employee at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, the largest multinational pharmaceutical company, all right, globally. He won more awards and set more records than anybody in the history of the company. He was #1 for 28 years in a row. Never will any of that stuff be accomplished again. And so I actually ended up going to a lot of his sales training courses as a teenager. But that provides you and that kind of upbringing a tremendous advantage. So let's move over to Natalie for a moment. I actually asked Natalie, I think it was last week, what type of sales training she had. So Natalie, would you mind just briefly mentioning what your background is regarding that, and how you kind of got your start? So how much support and coaching or training did the company provide you?
I was in newspaper advertising before, and I didn't get a lot of training. I kind of got thrown into it, and I started with an inside sales route, which I just sat at my desk and did phone calls for, and I turned that into a go out and meet with people type route, and really grew the business. Gotcha.
Okay. So, folks, those of you listening, here are two people that basically have had zero classical sales training, from an outside vendor, so to speak, but yet they're absolute superstars. In fact, it's probably better that they didn't receive training, because a lot of it is really not very helpful. So, in fact, I want to mention Natalie. She shared with me that she was the #1 salesperson at her company out of over 200 salespeople. That's pretty significant. In an industry that's dying, newspaper advertising. So, again, this gets back to why the assessment is so important, because I don't look at a person's resume. I don't ever see any of their data. The only thing I look at is the scientific research or scientific results of the profile results. And I knew, even though I didn't know what Natalie or Caroline had done in the past, that they were going to be very, very high performers. So, with that said, let's take a look at this for a moment, because I'm sure some of you are wondering, how do I take the frustrating, costly guesswork out of making a mishire? So I'm just going to share both Caroline and Natalie's results here just very briefly. Carolyn mentioned the DISC profile. For those of you that are not familiar with it, most of you are. It is a 4-quadrant personality style assessment. It helps us to determine a person's primary way of communicating and how to experience how they make decisions. So this is Caroline. Caroline has an 81 in terms of a sense of urgency. She's a pure I, only I'd say 1 away from perfection, a 99 out of 100 in terms of her expressiveness. Those are the 2 dimensions or quadrants that are the most important. Okay, so she's an 81 and a 99. Now, let's take a look at Natalie for a moment. Natalie is fairly similar from the standpoint that she is a 67 in her sense of urgency on the D, and also a 67 in terms of her expressiveness. Okay? So the common theme is outgoing, amiable, expressive, never met a stranger, right? They enjoy talking and being extroverted, okay? Naturally extroverted. So it's very important for an inside sales agent. Interestingly, the second most frequent position that I'm helping brokers hire for is an inside sales associate. The first is a buyer's agent. The second profile has to do with your economic drive. So Caroline is a 99 out of 100 in terms of her economic motivation. Pure mercenary, right, Caroline?
I need money.
Show, you know, as the movie, what was it, Jerry Maguire? Show,
Yes, show me the money.
show me the money. Absolutely right. So 99 out of 100. The second most important predictor of success in terms of a person's motivation is their achievement drive, which is this red one right here. And that is a 55. Now, the average of the top 10% of the salespeople in the country is about an 85 on the economic drive versus a 99. The average of the top 10% for the achievement drive is a 65, and hers is a 55. She also is really high in the middle dimension right here, which has to do with the fact that she likes autonomy, freedom, and she doesn't need a lot of hand-holding. She likes to work in a self-directed manner. Okay? So let's take a look at Natalie. Natalie is also higher than the top 10% in terms of her economic drive. It's an 87. And then her achievement drive is a 68. And also the autonomy and working in a self-directed manner, all right, is also very high at 56. So thus far, these profiles are definitely in the top 10% conservatively. Okay? Now, let's take a break for a moment and talk to each of you for a moment about money. How much does it fuel you? How much? We already know that it's very important to you, but in order for you to work in an ideal environment, tell me how important upside potential is according to your talent and your ability. So, Natalie, talk to me a little bit about that.
I have big goals. I want big money.
Okay. So, is the fact that a lot of your income is at risk or discretionary based on your performance something that you thoroughly enjoy?
Yes.
Okay. And is a lot of that because of the belief factor that you have in yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Caroline, tell me a little bit about, you have the advantage of now being a buyer's agent, in addition to having been an ISA. In fact, for those of you listening, that is a tremendous opportunity for you to kind of bring somebody into the business and then promote them within your own organization. So talk to me a little bit about why you made the decision perhaps to move up and to move on.
Well, the main reason was money. Just I wanted to make the big money. I wanted to make the commissions, and I, was doing a lot of the legwork to bring someone in the office and to get them in the door, and then they would sign the contract with the actual listing agent. And I kind of felt, well, I can do that, and then I could make a bigger percentage,
right,
in more money, and so that was really the driving force. That and being an ISA is You have to be on all the time.
Right.
And you can burn out very quickly. It's tough trying to talk on the phone all day long from 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, but non-stop.
So you mentioned
And
to
you
me
have to have
briefly,
energy throughout the whole thing.
you mentioned to me that sometimes you'd work through lunch, you'd even forget to go to the bathroom because you're so focused on what you're doing.
I'd be like, huh, at the end of the
Right.
day, it's 5 o'clock. I haven't eaten. I haven't gone to the bathroom.
Right, right. Now,
There you go.
that's never going to happen. We're really with a low D. All right. So these people, both Natalie and Caroline, have the kind of hardwiring, if you will, where they're very competitive, they're very aggressive, they're very results oriented. Natalie, would you mind sharing how many calls you made, how many people you got in touch with in order to get your 26 appointments?
I think I did close to 700 calls that week, and I talked to 67, and I got 26 appointments.
Right. Okay. So that takes an awful lot of persistence, all right? There's not a whole lot of people that are going to make that kind of amount of dials and continue moving forward. So one of the things that I want to share is this. I used to work for the largest sales training company in the world, and they used to write white papers on how much the cost of Salesforce turnover, okay? So one of the things that you need to know as an owner is that the absolute best people are highly economically motivated. Therefore, it's important to pay them extremely well, okay, for what they're contributing. Sometimes we get a little bit short-sighted. So what happened with the new CEO that came into Learning International is he got his nose out of joint that there were so many salespeople that were making more money than what he was. So guess what he did? He chopped the compensation plan downward significantly to the point that almost 50% of the total sales force left, in fact, the better ones. So it took him about 3 years to recover from that, and he eventually ended up getting fired. So I think that for you as a business owner, it's one thing to attract highly economically motivated people, but then the next thing is that you have to have a compensation plan that's set up and designed to give them incentive so that they will continue to push. They will continue to perform at a consistent high level because they're getting that monetary payback. Does that make sense?
And don't cap it. Don't put a cap on it.
Right. Absolutely. Should be completely no ceiling on what you can earn. It's just a function of how much you can generate, really. Right?
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, here's something interesting. Is I actually talked to somebody last week who was doing an ISA, is very, very good, and she basically is a flight risk or is disenfranchised because the person that she's providing the leads to wasn't the most polished and wasn't really doing the best job. In other words, he wasn't converting as many of the leads as what she thought that he could be converting. So another thing is that it's very important who you're teamed up with, and you having confidence in your buyer's agents to go ahead and after you've done all this hard work and you're the front face of the company and you've now got a commitment and you've got a meeting, it's now very important that those buyer's agents are actually going to convert on that. So Natalie, you want to talk to that just a moment in terms of the handoff that takes place and how that works?
We have an awesome team. The leads come in and I make the phone calls, and depending on the area that lead came in from or that the people are looking in, I pass them off in kind of a round-robin fashion to the agents that work that area.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Caroline, how did you guys handle it when you were in an ISA role?
Well, I was working the listing side, and we had 2 listing agents. So I was the front man and would bring the client in. Sometimes it's just an easy phone call, and because that person's ready to go, and they're like, okay, let's set the appointment. And other times you're nurturing them over time, and you're really pitching the marketing and doing a lot of follow-up and a lot of work trying to get them, to set the appointment. And then when they come in, and you can't do anything else, and your compensation could be dependent upon how that listing agent then does the listing presentation and presents them with the contract to sign. If they don't sign, all that hard work that I did could just go right down the drain and I won't get a bonus. I mean, so that's frustrating.
Sure. So now that you're on the other side of the house, so to speak, you're now a buyer's agent. we just talked briefly about, 10 minutes before last week about this call, and you mentioned to me that you kind of wish you could clone yourself. You wish that you had somebody, that would provide the type of lead gen that you were providing, because now that you're a buyer's agent, it's very difficult for you to do the prospecting and everything else, right, that you need to do in order for you to be effective. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to make it all work, because if I hire an ISA, they need to be as good as I was, and I'm going to be super picky about it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've got to be able to get my business going as a buyer agent so that I can afford to pay an ISA the way that they should be paid. And so
Gotcha.
It's hard to pay out of pocket, and so you want to try to figure out something that works for the ISA, but then maybe have the bonus be bigger when the actual contract is signed and that person decides to purchase.
So this really gets to the idea and the trend that specialization is better, because not only for repetition purposes, but for efficiency and effectiveness when you're in a specific position and that's all you do. Like Natalie, if you're making 600 plus dials a week, you're in the zone, right? You're dialing for dollars. You are just on, like Caroline says, all the time, as opposed to your focus being diverted and being very expansive. It's very, very niche, right? It's very, very narrow. So tell me how that really helps your productivity and your effectiveness versus kind of being all over the place.
Well, it keeps me focused, and I know what I'm dealing with every day, all day.
Okay.
It keeps me pretty refined in what I am doing, so you become a master of it.
Right. So we can see that specialization is very important. Having somebody devoted to handling leads. In fact, I've spoken to so many broker owners, and here's the constant theme. Number one, they need to have leads. So there's a lot of different good companies out there like Boomtown and Commissions Inc., Market Leader, Zerpal, and others that deliver on that by being able to provide you with a significant amount of leads. But then they've now solved one problem but have created another. Now the problem is that you basically have an abundance of leads, almost more than you can handle, and you're not able to convert. So the owner's thinking, oh my goodness, I'm spending all this money on leads, but I'm not able to convert or even handle the amount of leads that I have. So that's why an ISA can be so crucial. The other challenge or opportunity for you to have the right talent to close those leads. Okay, so Natalie, I'd be interested to hear from you, so that those that are in an ISA position, or those brokers that are either have an ISA right now or considering maybe having an ISA, what are some of the biggest challenges or objections that you hear?
They'll say, I'm just looking, or they will sign up on the website and say, no, they're not looking for a house.
Okay.
Sometimes you kind of have to bring them to the realization that they really are looking for a house. They might have just forgotten temporarily.
Right.
Gosh.
So many people are putting up a front because they don't want to be talking to that old traditional used car kind of salesperson. So they're just kind of saying, I'm just kind of browsing, or I'm not really looking at this time. I'm not really ready, right?
Right.
So how is it that you're so successful, right? In terms of like in the 20 appointments in 1 week, how do you do that?
Great determination.
Right.
And I truly do try to make a friend out of everybody that answers the phone.
Okay.
And most of the time, if you make a friend, they're not going to be rude to you. So you can talk to them, and you can decide what they really want. And that, once they get talking, they'll usually share a lot more than what you're really asking for.
Okay.
So.
Well, not to put you on the spot here, but I want to mention something that Fred sent to me. I'm not sure if you have been privy to this information, but it's one of your teammates actually making some comments and giving some feedback about you. And the person says this: I think there are multiple reasons that Natalie is so successful with her position. I think she was born to be a salesperson. So that's the first interesting concept, right? You were born kind of have this what I call the sales DNA, and instinctively knows how to sell in a way that people seem to welcome. So amiable, friendly, right, is very, very genuine. She also brings an enthusiasm for her position, the team, and everyone individually, which carries over into every single conversation that she has. Even when someone is not interested, already has an agent, she seems to turn them around and make it appear effortless. Her presentation to the leads is warm and inviting, and she makes appointments seem logical, easy, and helpful. All in all, I can't imagine someone better to do what she does. Wow. I mean, if I was a buyer's agent, I mean, nirvana for me would having either one of you or both of you on my team because of how well you're able to convert and how well you're able to do in that function. Caroline, what were some of the challenges that you saw, or what are some of the common objections that you saw?
Well, when I was working with Mark Z's team, there are a lot of other big power agents in that same area, and so it was, you know, why should I list with Mark Z instead of Jeff Glover or Michael Perna? And you know, I would never say anything bad about the others, but you just have to really know, like, stick to what your statistics are, what Mark Z's statistics were, and promote that. And when you have those numbers and you can come back with, you know, we've sold this many homes, we have a team, it's a team atmosphere, we help you, it's like nonstop shopping, you know, it's we help you along the way, every step of the way. But, you know, to add to what Natalie was saying too, it's you don't want to be imposing and you don't want to be pushy, and it's true, you want to establish that friendly connection. And what I was always taught, what my grandfather always told me is you know, there's a lot more horses' asses out there than there are horses, but you always want to kill them with kindness. And so you might get somebody who's grumpy on the phone, and I always find it fun to see how I can lift up their energy and kill them with kindness, and pretty soon I've got this friendly conversation going, and I've brightened their day. And to me, that's fun and special, and I enjoy that. So, but as far as, you know, the challenges, it's just, you know, listening and knowing your numbers. You really do have to know your numbers and your facts and how to just deal with people.
Great. Okay.
Hey, real quick, John, I'm going to jump in real quick here.
Yeah, sure.
People that are watching, in the upper right corner, there's little squares you can click and turn on your question and answer, and feel free to be asking questions, and we'll get them answered for you. So I just wanted to jump in and say that real quick.
The other thing that I'll mention too is that both of our guests have worked on both sides of the equation, both on the buy side and also on the list side. So some people just have an ISA that's designated just for the buy side. Some people just have an ISA designated for the list side. Some people are doing a combination. It really depends on each organization. But I think that we're seeing here how it can be a tremendous asset to the organization, provided you have the right person. So, Natalie, is there any kind of unique selling proposition that you cover, in addition to being amiable, likable, outgoing, and friendly, and coming across as being very genuine? Is there any other type of unique selling proposition? I don't know. I've not asked you. So that you cover kind of when you're talking, other than just being a consummate facilitator and asking great questions and kind of leading them to the path, which is to get the appointment.
I really make it a practice to sell our team, because our team is second to none. Our agents are awesome, and I tell the people on the other end of the phone that the agent is awesome that they're going to be meeting with.
Right.
We have a lot of marketing tools that they make available to the clients, so I do bring those to the attention of them as well.
Right. Okay. So the fact that, you know, you mentioned the average production is pretty much 8 times what the national average is, so that helps to kind of bring the point across that they are, you know, very polished and very good at what they do.
Right.
Caroline, anything that you used to mention as far as a unique selling proposition or something that was perhaps the most compelling, kind of in addition to your
Well, bottom line, like the way I feel is that I have to believe, really, really, truly believe in the person I'm promoting. And I've been fortunate to have worked with people that, I've believed in. Like Mark Z is amazing, and like he's such an inspiration, and I enjoyed working for him and promoting him because it was easy to do. And I'm now working with Kathy Toth, who is, I can't even say enough good things about her. She's just absolutely amazing, and she has taken me under her wing, and I love her. I mean, like a sister, and she has taught me so much, and so I will go above and beyond for her, and I will promote her and be her cheerleader, and because I believe in her, and that is so important for the owners out there to actually get to know the ISA and teach them or train them or talk to them and make them believe in you, and because then it makes our job easy.
Right.
Yes, so John, I was going to jump in with a question. So, ladies, for both of you, how important do you think it is that the culture and the environment that you came into was able to help you become successful? Because I know if you're sitting there on the phones all day and you don't have the right people around motivating you and being there to help you and convert the leads that you're setting, I mean, how important is that part of it that allows you to come in every single day and make those dials?
It's super important because you got to like your environment and the people, and I was very fortunate to have those situations, and the very first person I worked with, it was more of a sink or swim situation. This was prior to coming to Mark Z's team, and there wasn't much training involved, and so I was new to real estate at the time, so that was difficult, but you have to have your systems in place. So
you're in a very positive. I think that the main point here is that if someone's going to give their discretionary effort, they have to be happy. And they're only going to be happy if they're fully engaged in what they're doing. That's oftentimes contingent on the treatment that they receive and the culture or what it feels like to work in the environment. So, Natalie, would you mind mentioning, you mentioned something very interesting or kind of humorous to me. You said that when you arrived, the party started. Can you tell me a little bit about how you have kind of added value to the culture by celebrating?
Yes. Well, when I started working here, it was kind of quiet in the office, and I share an office with the big boss, Fred. So I tried to be quiet too, but I'm not really cut out that way. So I started woohooing every time I made an appointment. I would go, woohoo! And pretty soon it really caught on in the office, and so now we just kind of make it a habit to celebrate everybody's woohoo moment, and every day is just kind of funny.
Right. Okay. Scott, are you hearing all that distortion? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Scott, are you there?
John? Ladies, can you hear me okay?
You're just breaking
Yeah,
up.
I can hear you.
I think you may be on a delay a little bit there, buddy, somehow.
Okay. So I'm not sure if everybody heard Natalie, but basically she used to celebrate every time she would be successful in getting an appointment, and that became very contagious in the office. And she would always say woohoo, whenever she would get somebody. I got another one, so to speak. I'm that much closer to my goal, and we as a team are in this together, and we're going to be successful. So I'm not sure, is Fred still there, Natalie, or close by?
He is.
Fred, would you mind just kind of sharing with the group what your numbers look like versus last year and what you're anticipating in terms of overall growth?
We're looking at growth this year of somewhere around 50%. So we're hovering right around $1 million in gross commission income at this point. So we've been able to raise our average transaction size this year, as well as just increase the number of units. So it's been a great year, just a win all the way around.
Johnny there? Fred, what are you expecting this year with your numbers? I know you mentioned it earlier, but let's talk about what you think you're going to be doing this year, because a lot of people weren't on earlier when you first talked.
So talking about going into 2015?
Yeah.
Going into 2015, we're looking at, again, another growth of about 50%. So we're expecting gross commission incomes around 1.6 next year. And we'll probably be well over 300 units, pretty close to 400 units next year.
And then talk again about how important it is knowing that that you're able to really see tangible results based on the specialization of the roles in your business now.
It just makes sense. I think real estate must be one of the very few industries where typically they put one person in charge of the entire funnel from beginning to end. And that just doesn't work as well as specialists. So we have specialists at every stage of the game. And they talk to someone like Natalie at the beginning. They get a real estate specialist to take them to see homes and to help them with their contracts, and it just goes right on down to the closing table. So this kind of specialization means that we can just supply great customer service all the way through for every client.
Fred, let me ask you an important question. There are many who are contemplating using a virtual ISA. I'm not sure, or I didn't even talk to you whether or not you even considered that. And versus an in-house ISA. So I know Caroline has some experience with that, and she can talk about that in a moment. But what are your thoughts on that?
In fact, we had experimented with a virtual ISA for many months before we hired Natalie, and it just felt like it was something where we weren't able to provide the same level of support and training and guidance all the way through it every day that we can when they're right here with us. So that we believe that is partly the credit that we can put to this, all the success of this, but some of it, of course, is just finding the right person with your help.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Caroline, why don't you talk to me a little bit about cultural differences, language barrier, since you're there by U of M. The virtual ISA, not even knowing what U of M was, and having to clarify and ask three questions. Is that, what did you say, U of N? Right? What? Tell me a little bit about your experience and kind of any guidance you would give to any entrepreneurs as it relates to.
Well, certainly there are some advantages to having a virtual because of the the compensation, and you will get somebody who will be there all the time, 24/7. You can have somebody around the clock, and I recommend maybe even having at least one virtual ISA, but then you need your main in-house ISA, because having somebody that can fill in the evenings or on weekends or when your main ISAs aren't available is a good thing to have. Right. But you do need to make sure that they are somewhat Americanized. They've got to be able to speak English well and to know, and I think it would be worth it to actually fly them in if it's cost effective for you, to have them in town to show them the area, show them the difference between, like, for instance, at U of M, where's Main Street in Ann Arbor, the downtown area versus the campus area, and when somebody says, I want to be near campus, they need to know what that means. And the other thing is, I think that if they can incorporate a few sentences, oh, well, while you're in town, you should definitely go to the restaurant Grazzi. It's amazing Italian food. I mean, just something that gives them a way to connect, and so that it doesn't feel so call center-ish.
Right.
And then provide them with some information. If you can't fly them in, provide them with some research and some links, and make them study, make them do their homework and understand the area, because it's so important. But it's not the same as having in-house, because you've got a more personalized touch when it's somebody who's actually there, and it's better for the agents to have that ISA in-house, because you can send them a quick text and say, hey, can you follow up with so-and-so for me? That's so valuable to just be able to communicate like that.
Well, thank you for sharing both perspectives. It many times just doesn't have to be an either or, but that's a common question that we get that's coming up. Should I try virtual ISA or or do an in-house. Now, there are some companies, like I think it was Frontier Airlines, that decided to use stay-at-home moms who basically had put their profession on hold because they had kids. And these are people that were working part-time after hours. They were using VoIP, so there was hardly any much of an expense that was associated. But to your point, their customers and clients were getting, an American, that understands how to speak, right? Our language understands our culture, and as opposed to, something in India where oftentimes that's not really the best, putting your best foot forward.
Yeah, I think Southwest does that too.
Right. So it's a really smart decision. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, so John, I got 4 different questions here. If you want to go through a few of these.
let's take one, and then I want to mention something about both of our guests on the phone.
All right. Well, I found it. I think we didn't dive deep into it, but one of the questions from Kathy is, what does the comp program look like for these high-performing ISAs, base, commission, bonus, et cetera, and how are you guys getting paid? And do you think if you were paid differently may incentivize you better? So maybe go into that a little bit.
Well, let me just kind of mention a couple of things as guiding principles, because we don't want to get into the specifics of what they're getting paid and so
Right.
forth. But
Okay.
it absolutely has to be a split where there's a guaranteed portion so that they can.
So like a salary or an hourly, something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. And then there's got to be some upside potential. So we did some research. We took over 300 salespeople, multinational companies. Okay, what is the number one thing that the number one salesperson shared in common? You know what the most significant thing was? High economic drive. So if they have a high economic drive, you have a higher probability that they're going to be successful. But in having said that, if you hire someone like that, then you've got to be able to deliver on that high drive. So the upside potential is more so based on performance. I personally don't like to put it on actual appointments, because that can sometimes be gamey, and it can be disingenuous with the wrong person. Not to say that it would with these two, but the best way to do it is based on actual closes.
Yeah, but do you think it's important in a position like this where they're relying on an agent that may not be as committed to have a little bit compensation on both sides, whether it's a little on appointment and then on the close?
Yes, I mean definitely the lion's share of the compensation should come on the close versus the actual appointment. I think that really has to do with the owner and each individual employee. That's something that needs to be worked out between the two of them. And there needs to be an open, transparent conversation about that so that you can prevent turnover. Okay? It can be, the ISA role can be a fantastic stepping stone to a buyer's agent, but you know something? There are an incredible amount of inside salespeople or telemarketing people that's their passion, that's what they love doing, and they're phenomenal at it, and that's where they need to stay. So I think it's a matter of helping them stay is going to be a function of how much you reward them financially. So, obviously, if you're having the amount of results that we saw from both of these teams and these ISA people, there's going to be a lot of money left over to compensate them with. But it's a very important part of the equation. So, let me just mention briefly something that's of huge importance. And folks, I know that one of the biggest frustrations, and something that we covered last week, is the iceberg analogy. When you're in an interview, 90% of what you need to know is actually hidden. Just like the iceberg, 90% of it is under the surface. So the reason fundamentally that for those of you that are new, to why both Caroline and Natalie have done exceptionally well has to do most with the hardwiring of their brain. Okay? The neural networks of their mind. So they see almost everything clearly. So I want to just show you something here. Part of what we measure is 78 different attributes. This happens to be Caroline's. 78 different attributes, okay? Now, an 80% score is actually a 6.0, okay? So 60, when you see a 6 score, that's actually equivalent to an 80%. So you can see at the top here that realistic goal setting, correcting others, self-confidence, developing others, evaluating others, freedom from prejudice, sensitivity to others, understanding motivational needs are all 9.4 and higher for Caroline. Similar situation for Natalie. their scores are absolutely off the chart, okay, in terms of what I call people talents, the ability to connect, relate quickly, easily, develop trust and rapport. Those are things that they innately or naturally do well. It's not a matter of training, not a matter of having gone to a program, although I've helped train over 200,000 people over the last couple decades. These are people, that's why I can say authoritatively and with a lot of confidence, hire this person before somebody else does, because this person is a superstar. Now, because their scores are so high, and these are in areas and things that you can't teach. Things like enjoyment of the job, confidence, consistency and reliability, handling stress, self-esteem, a whole host of absolute crucial attributes. So let me ask you, Caroline, when I did the review of your assessment results for you, your comment to me was, it was really enlightening. It was a kind of big eye-opener because you really didn't realize how good you really are or how much upside potential you really have. So what did that actually do to your spirit, to you as a person, and actually going through these results with you?
Well, I kind of had a feeling that I might have been. Yeah, no, it was so wonderful to hear. You know, I'm also a mother, and you know, I've had my experience working and my own business and my family business and all of that. But just to hear that and to be able to have that confidence come from that too, it really, I think it's made me even better now, just because it's validated, you know.
Right, it's very affirming, right?
Right, right.
Natalie, when I finished up my one-on-one session after you came on board, like the first week, we reviewed your assessment results, and I told you, I said it's not a matter of if you're going to be successful, but how successful, because you have a unique blend, just like Caroline, of an ideal personality style, ideal motivators, and ideal innate talents, so that they really have, for both of you, an amplification effect. They're really complementary. So even without looking at your resume or knowing anything about your past, after that I happened to ask you, by the way, you know, about your last sales position and how well you did. And you shared with me that you were the #1 person out of over 200 people. And I said, I'm not surprised because your profiles are so strong. So would you just kind of briefly share from an onboarding point of view and from a new employee part of view, from the standpoint of, you know, who are they? Do I like them? Do I trust them? That is your new employer. What impression did this actually give you joining a new company?
Well, I thought they really did their homework on me to figure out what I was all about and how well I would do in the position. Gave me great confidence in the people that I work for.
Okay.
And the things that you said about my profile and how it came back, it was go power for me. It was a real confidence builder.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for sharing your gift, your time, and just some of the best practices that you use. Again, continued success to you both. You guys are two of the best people, candidly, that I have helped some of my clients hire, and it's just a thrill to see how you guys are just continuing to rise and do so well. I'm going to close, Scott, with a quote. Last week we covered some information, some research that basically Harvard Business Review had come up with. And basically they said that a sample results of organizations that both hire and retain top producing sales teams include increases in service and quality. I'll read it because it's not there on the screen. Increases in service and quality and customer satisfaction of over 50%, growth rates of 60% to 300% greater than their competition, return on sales of 200% to 300% greater than their competition, and return on assets of 150 to 300% greater than their competition. So I'll just show that here for a moment. So really, when it comes to talent, no amount of time, all right, and no amount of investment can equal the value of the right people, regardless of the role. You as a business owner, the secret to your success is having somebody that you know with a very high level of confidence is not just going to get by and do okay and be a utility player, but they're going to absolutely crush it because who they are as a person and everything about them, their personality style, what it is that motivates and drives them, those things that they have as strengths that they naturally do well, are uniquely configured in such a way that they're in the sweet spot, they're in the zone, they're in their element. It's something that they naturally do well, they enjoy it, they get fuel from doing it, they're engaged, and with the right leadership and the right culture, there's no limits to what they can accomplish. So I want to thank everybody for viewing this call this week, and thank you again, Caroline and Natalie, two of the best that I've ever come across. Your profiles prove it, but even more important, for the people that you now work for, your results prove it even more. So keep up the phenomenal work. Fred, thank you very much for being on standby there and helping us out as well, and for being a voice of an owner. That's also very helpful.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well,